Well, good day, everyone. On the phone today, we're privileged to have Mr. Doug Hauser from Ray and Associates, a very well-respected accounting and tax firm here in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome, Doug.
Thanks for having me, Brad. Happy to be here.
Just wanted to get some insights into this CARES Act, which has recently come out from the government. And we've got a lot of customers. In fact, the vast majority of our customers are small businesses, would be under 500 employees, contractors doing a great service in this country, protecting infrastructure. And just wanted to get some insights for them. So I'm just going to ask them questions as if I'm a contractor, and
Sure.
maybe we could get some help here. So do you think the CARES Act will help me as a business owner? I've got 50 employees.
Yes, I would absolutely go after what's called the PPP loan under the CARES Act. If you want to think about it in simple terms, I would term this helicopter money, and by that I mean it's as if the U.S. Treasury is flying around with helicopters, dropping money out. It truly is that simple and that straightforward, and they are trying to give money away essentially to any business with less than 500 employees. So it is absolutely imperative, I think, that any company try to take advantage of this program.
Wow, that's fantastic. So could you give me just a quick overview of the Act? I understand there's a few different parts of it.
Yeah.
Specifically around as a small business owner or a small business, what I can take advantage of. What are the different parts?
So there's different parts, as you suggest, Brad. Initially, there was what's called the EIDL, or disaster loan. This program has been in place through the SBA for a number of years, primarily used as it relates to hurricanes and other natural disasters and such. Now that program runs straight through the SBA. It is a direct online application, and you're certainly welcome to go through that. That is focused more on the revenue impact that a business might have. And while it's a good program, it's not as advantageous as, quote unquote, the free money that is potentially available under the PPP loan program. Now, the PPP loan program was established directly through the CARES Act. It did not exist previously. And that program is an offshoot of the SBA, or Small Business Administration, 7A loan program. It is run through the banks, so you have to work with your banker on that one. It is not a direct SBA program, much like the EIDL or disaster loan or other SBA loan programs. So the PPP again runs through the banks, and I would encourage all of you to get in the queue right away in terms of getting your application in on that one.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Good. Well, what should I do first? Like, would I qualify for an EIDL?
Yeah, it's certainly, you're not precluded from applying to any or all of these programs, but if you were to focus directly on one, I would certainly, again, focus on the PPP or CARES Act loan, because there are significant forgiveness provisions within that package. In other words, the bulk of the balance of that loan will be forgiven and essentially treated as a grant by the government. That's why I use the initial term kind of helicopter money, because really you've got to be there to get it, and once you do, it's essentially free money. But
Wow.
again, that I wouldn't ignore the others just for that. But that's certainly the one I would focus on first.
Yeah, wow. So with the PPP, does that, if it's forgiven, does that accrue interest? Is there still interest that's got to be paid, or isn't that clear
There
how that's going to work yet?
there is interest on it. However, it's a very low rate. It is 0.5%. So you can quickly do the math on that.
Wow.
It's a very, very low rate of interest. So I would encourage you, even if your business is still quite strong and you haven't had to lay people off and things like that, I would still encourage you to get in line for this, if nothing else, just as a backstop and additional liquidity source if you happen to not be forgiven the loan amount and have to pay it back. The worst thing that happens is that you have a couple of months of interest at 0.5% on this additional liquidity source.
Wow.
That said, it is highly likely that you will have the loan amount forgiven. In fact, those provisions are written into the law, and you can easily calculate what the forgiveness amount will be. In fact, we've produced a handy dandy calculator that folks can use to run through and figure that out. And I will certainly disseminate that to Brad, and he can get that out to each and every one of you.
Fantastic. That'll be an excellent resource to have. We'll include that in our email to our customers. So just quickly on the economic injury disaster loan, then we'll get on a little bit more detail on the PPP. But I can obviously apply online for that. There's a website which is covid19relief.sba.gov. Is that all I need to do there? Is it just fill out that form, or do I have to upload things, or?
Yes, with the EIDL, again, that one is not run through the banks. It is a direct application that is done online, and it's a pretty streamlined process. They made some fixes to that post COVID-19, so that you can run through that process in its entirety in 20 to 30 minutes. So it is fairly straightforward, but yes, you will have to upload some documents and things like that in PDF form. So that's how that one works.
Okay. There's a $10,000 grant, I understand, with that. Is that forgiven as well, or how does that work?
I'm sorry, Brad, I didn't catch that.
So I think with that program, there's a $10,000 grant.
Correct.
Is that the forgiven money as well?
Yes, that $10,000 grant that you're referring to is under the EIDL. Those grants are intended to be an emergency advance. So as soon as you apply for the EIDL, you can request that advance. And that $10,000 advance does not need to be repaid under any circumstance. Wow. And can be used to keep employees on payroll or whatever. So yes, that is a very attractive feature that's within the EIDL itself.
Okay, so say I'm a very small contractor. Maybe I am the only employee. I'm a sole proprietor. I do the work. I would be eligible for that, and that could be $10,000 funded straight to me.
Correct. Yes. Wow. And even as a sole proprietor, you still can also apply for the PPP as well.
Wow.
For companies and sole proprietors, the PPP applications are now out there. Those first applications can be taken on Friday, April 3rd, which is obviously approaching quite quickly. If you are an independent contractor, such as a 1099 employee, you have to wait one additional week. Those applications cannot be submitted until Friday, April 10th. The EIDL, however, is active right now. You can do that at any time.
Okay, good. And just to recap, that's covid19relief.sba.gov to get that EIDL started. So if I apply for an EIDL, does that stop me from applying for a PPP as well?
Not at all. I would certainly encourage folks to take a strong look at both. Again, that said, I think the PPP overall is just more attractive due to the forgiveness provisions that are baked into that.
And you've got a calculator coming, which we'll share with our customers, will be very beneficial, but just high level. What's the amount calculator? How do you come up with a loan amount?
At a high level, essentially how they're going to calculate the loan amount for the PPP, it's going to be determined based on a formula that is essentially 2.5 times your average month's payroll. And there are some definitions as you get down into the weeds in terms of what is included in payroll cost and what is excluded. But suffice to say, there's benefits, health insurance, vacation allotment, other things that are baked into what's termed the payroll cost. And we've got that in the calculator. But as a rough estimate, it's 2.5 times your average 1 month payroll.
Very good. And how does the forgiveness amount be calculated? Is it a similar basis, or does it work?
The forgiveness provisions, and we've got some of that in the calculator and literature as well. Essentially, what will be forgiven is what you spend for the succeeding 8 weeks from the grant date of that loan. So, and what you spend, by that I mean payroll costs, rent, utilities, things like that are also included. Now, one caution is that the rent and utilities and other monies that are not part of payroll, that part of the reimbursement or forgiveness cannot be greater than 25% of what's forgiven. So in essence, if you think back to the purpose of it, they want the bulk of those funds to be used for payroll itself.
So this is really so I retain all my staff on board, I keep paying them, and the government's, in a sense, is what you're saying, is going to pay for my staff for the next for 8 weeks from when the loan is granted.
Yes, Brad, that's a great way to think about it in those terms. I mean, obviously there's a few things in the calculator as you get down into the weeds, but that's an overall good way to look at it in terms of what they're trying to do is essentially pay you for 8 weeks of payroll and other costs like rent, utilities, etc. In essence, keeping your business open for 8 weeks.
Wow, that's incredible. So if I am in a position where I can have my staff come to the office or even work remotely, if we're shut down, say I'm a contractor, I can't get onto the sites that I'm meant to be working at, I could be getting my employees to work on a new QA system, ramping up a sales process, fixing machines, do all the stuff I wanted to do for years, just never had time to do it. And the government's going to pay me for that.
Absolutely correct. As long as they are on the payroll, you're going to be essentially reimbursed or forgiven those amounts. So you can't, the one thing I would caution, you can't game the system. In other words, they're not going to reimburse you for costs in excess of what you actually spend. So when you work with your bank, post loan time, in other words, once you get that loan, they'll come back to you and ask you to provide information to verify those costs that you spent over those 8 weeks, payroll records, rent receipts, things like that. So you can't game the system. But yes, you're absolutely correct in that as long as you're paying them, it'll essentially reimburse you for 8 weeks for whatever you're paying them, no matter what you're having them do.
That's fantastic. And so how do I apply?
So with the PPP, again, that one, much like any other SBA program except for the disaster loan, the PPP is run directly through the banks. And a word of caution here, if the bank is already an SBA approved lender, they will be much more capable and much more well versed in handling the applications for this program. And again, they can go live with this on Friday, April 3rd. If the bank institution is not already an approved SBA lender, they can still do it. However, it's going to take them a little bit of time to become an SBA approved lender. Now, the government is trying to expedite that, but that said, I would check with the bank and make sure, okay, are you guys already an SBA approved lender? What's your appetite for this? Because we are seeing some difference, in fact, quite a lot of difference between certain banks in terms of their appetite for doing this.
Very interesting.
The reason that is that what's in it for the bank, if you think about it, yes, they're going to make this loan to you, and then the government is going to give them or reimburse them for the amount of the loan that they made. So really what they're making on this is simply a fee that they're getting paid to originate these loans. Now, some of the banks that are, have a better appetite and are hungrier and are more well-versed in doing this stuff, they're all over it, and they're essentially lining up clients in the queue and getting them prepared to submit these applications. Other institutions are looking at it and saying, well, all I'm getting out of this is, kind of a nominal fee to do this stuff. And you know what, I'm not as interested. Now, of course, they're not going to state that publicly, but what will happen is they'll require additional information, maybe try to slow roll it a little bit, and just not be as aggressive in terms of helping their clients get through the process.
Okay. So I'm best off asking my current bank, are they SBA approved? If they are, roll with it. Otherwise, I might be best off trying to find another bank in town which is SBA, and there's quite a few of them, isn't there? Banks which are SBA.
Absolutely. There's literally thousands of institutions that are SBA approved. So it's not hard to find one.
Very good. And just still on the PPP, one last question. I go to my bank tomorrow, I get all the forms submitted, and then Friday it gets sent in to the government, to the SBA. That's done by the bank. How soon do you think the money would be funded?
The government is saying they want this money in the hands of the businesses as soon as possible. Now, I heard Secretary Steve Mnuchin say that they're talking about 3 or 4 days. We'll see on that, but I do know that they really are fast tracking this, and they are pushing this hard with the banks. So I would expect this to be kind of a sooner rather than later type of a deal.
Wow, that's incredible. Thankful to have a government that's looking after its people.
Yes, it's a wonderful program, and hopefully it delivers on everything that has been promised thus far.
And just quickly, I know there's some other SBA loans like a 7A and a.
Correct. Yeah, that's right, Brad. There's some traditional 7A SBA programs, rather, such as the 7A program you mentioned, the 504 program. There's a micro loan program. All of these can be good programs as well. Again, these all run through the banks themselves. So I would encourage you to talk to your banker about those. I wouldn't be as concerned as I am with the PPP. The reason I say there's concern with the PPP is that I think and the banks are all telling me this, the appetite for this PPP program is going to be so significant that I think they're going to burn through this money pretty quickly, even though it's obviously quite a large amount, $349 billion. Literally every business that I know is in essence getting in line to get the PPP. So that one is just so lucrative and so popular. The other traditional SBA programs, you don't have to worry about being as quick on the draw, so to speak, with.
Very good. done more loans to, if I'm struggling to get credit for my, say, my renewals coming up, and I'm now struggling to get credit with my current bank. That's a funding opportunity for me to look at those other SBA loans.
Absolutely, you know, for sure that it's a good time to be going through all that, you know, and that said, the PPP is not dependent upon any other credit status, for example, the wherewithal of the business or anything like that. They've really tried to skinny down the underwriting for it so that it's essentially determined based on your payroll. That's really the determining factor. They just, again, want to really give money to companies so that they keep folks on the payroll.
That's fantastic. So if there's one message I'm getting from you loud and clear is, after watching this video, is I should be picking up the phone and calling my banker, asking if he's SBA approved, and getting the documents and filling them out and get in line.
Absolutely. I wouldn't hesitate to do that. The other attractive part with the PPP program, again, there is no collateral that is required for the PPP loan program. There's no personal guarantee that's required. So again, they've just done everything possible to bend over backward and make it as attractive as they can.
Yeah, fantastic. Good. Well, thank you very much, Doug. Again, this is Doug Hauser from Ray and Associates, and Doug is one of the leading advisors on construction here in Columbus, Ohio. So thanks, Doug. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate you having me on, and certainly glad to help. We're just here to try to help not only our clients, but any companies that are certainly in the industry, and try to get them hooked up with the resources they need so they can continue to operate and be successful once we move through this period. So I'll be sure and send that calculator again to you, and you can feel free to disseminate that as well.
Very good. Thank you.